Hi, this is relational database coding. Uh, so this is chapter two. This is the chapter two PowerPoint that I'm going to go over, and I'm going to show you how we use uh, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So the PowerPoint presentation actually shows you how to use multiple parts of SQL. I only have the Management Studio in my laptop, so I'll just show you that, but the other parts you could find on your own. Uh, he says the applied objectives is the use of Management Studio to do any of the following management tasks. Start and stop an instance of SQL Server Express. Enable a remote connection to a database. Navigate through the object of a database. Attach, detach, backup, or restore database. Set the compatibility level of it for a database. View the database diagram for a database. View the column definition for a table in a database. View or modify the data of a table in a database. Modify the column definitions for a table in a database. Use the Management Studio to run, open, and save SQL queries, and use the Query Designer. Uh, the objectives are to briefly describe the functions of each of these client tools: the Management Studio, the Query Designer, and the SQL Server documentation. Distinguish between Windows authentication and SQL authentication for connecting to an SQL database server, and describe what compatibility levels when it is applied to SQL Server. So I don't have the SQL Server Configuration Manager, so I don't have that here, but what I do have is the SQL uh, Server Management Studio. So here, as you could see, um, here, as you could see, I would be connecting locally uh, to the SQL Server. I could do SQL Server authentication, but since I'm on my laptop, so it will automatically connect. So I hit connect, and it will show me uh, the databases that I have there. Here, I could do a right mouse click, and you see start, stop, pause, resume, restart. Those are grayed out, so I cannot get access to it. We could try to disconnect and then uh, connect, and let's see what happens here. So this here is connecting through SQL connection, uh, but I cannot log in because I don't have the credentials in order to log in, because that's for I have to log in through a specific IP address. So that gives um, additional security. But these are the local databases, and here, for example, for this database, uh, we could look at the tables, and these are the tables in my one by one database. Um, so this is for a normal, uh, you know, account, like a gaming type system. And here ASP.NET users, here, if, I want to view the data, I could say, hey, select the top 200 rows. So what it's doing is it's going through that table, and I'm looking at the top 200 rows. And as you could see here, I could see what the email addresses are, what the password hashes are, what the security, etc. So you could see all these things in a database. Um, you could actually look at the columns for specific tables. So um, these are the columns. So this database, this table is made up of all these fields here that need to get populated. You see that? And it tells you what fields are not null or what fields could be null, etc. In order for them to be able to get filled and you to be able to create that specific table. Um, keys here, it tells you, hey, so the cards, for example, this cards table has a foreign key to cards. Sorry, it has the key to cards. It's right there, and it's ID. So you see that. Then let's see what constraints. It doesn't have any constraints. But then here, contest cards. Um, it will have a foreign key, FK's foreign key, to contest cards, to contest ID, to customer ID, and to card ID. So the card ID would be this ID here. So a ID has to exist here in order to fill the card ID, the dynamic card ID here. So we're able to see that information in here. Um, you could disconnect by clicking here or connect here. This is refresh. So whenever you make any type of changes, you have to refresh here, because if not, you will not see it automatically. So you will need to refresh that information in there. So this button here, up here, where it says new query. So I could click on it, and here it means, okay, well, so now I could query something, right? So right here, I am using the one-by-one database. So let me see, we can type in something like select star from um, ASP.NET ASP.NET users right here. You see how this has DBO dot? Well, I don't need to put DBO dot here, but I could if I wanted to, but I don't. And then I could just, I could either highlight it. So if I highlight something and say execute, it will give me all the information for the ASP.NET users table. Now, let's say if I wanted to get into the class database, um, and I don't, uh, I never filled that out, but let's see here. So let's see if I want to get from the book list raiser. That's that. That's the um, that's the database book list raiser. So I could go here and say use, and then book list raiser, book list raiser. So it populates it here. And then if I highlight this and hit execute, it will use this database, and you see how it selected it over here. So that's another way of doing that. And then I could say select star from book. Okay, and then I could just highlight this here and say execute. And then let's say if I want to say select star from ASP um, ASP ASP.NET users, ASP.NET users. Okay, so if I do this, here and I type execute, so it's going to give me an error because it's going to say, hey, that database doesn't exist. But I could say, well, use ASP.NET one by one, this right here. Okay, and I could highlight both of this and hit execute, and here it is. And then if I wanted to see the book, I could highlight this here and hit execute, and then I see the books. Um, so, if you look at this, it has a lot of buttons, a lot of tools that you could use. Um, you have the SQL profiler, the database engine tuning advisor, so code snippet manager. So you have a lot of tools here that you could use. All you have to do is just explore and see what else is available here. Um, you could delete a table just by right mouse click and say delete, and that would delete this actual table from the database. And then it wouldn't be there anymore. Once you delete it, there's no way to recover it or easy way to recover it. So I would not delete something. I would just create a new database, and then you could copy whatever tables you want to the new database, and then work from there. Especially if you're making changes, etc., and then you have to use that database in the future or for any other reasons. Um, These are views, so you'll learn more about views later in the semester as well. Uh, this is security, so you could actually say, hey, this is the people that have access to this uh, database, and you could hunker it down and say, hey, only these people can have access to my database, and they have to have a specific role um, with the database. Um, Here are the schemas that you could look at. You see certificates. This is if you want to add certificates to your database. Um, so there's quite a few options that you could do when you play around with um, with it. Um, so let's continue here. So obviously, this talks about attaching a database uh, to um, to this, and you could do that. Um, and I think there's a way to do that in the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Um, and you could back up your database. So there is a way to back up your database. Let me see if there is a way here. So let's say um, export, and you want to all settings. So this is the settings uh, of the studio that you could export. But I think I think they have a tool to back up. Let me check here. Um, Project tools. So I think you have to do it with something besides this here. Maybe if we do a right mouse click here, and we could, let's see, tasks. Okay, yeah, so you go to tasks, so you could go to the database, um, you do a right mouse click, tasks, and you say backup. And here's your backup database, and you can back up the database to your local drive. And that way you could call it again if you need to. So there's a way to do that. And then if you look here, you could also restore. So with restore, you will find a file and restore it back to the database. So you can do it that way as well. And I think you'll find some interesting things here. Um, you can import flat files, data, export data, etc. So various ways to put data into the system or to take it out as well. then you have compatibility levels with the database properties. Um, so if you go here, you get properties, and here you have the compatibility levels that you could get to. So you see that there. And this is the database diagram. Um, so we have like the, you could tell it to create a new database diagram. Um, let's look at the tables. Um, I guess you have to install that. Right. So, you have the database diagram here, but it doesn't show the information in there. So something probably has to be installed in order for you to be able to look at the database diagram. You can look at the columns. I already showed you that, and the rows um, as well, and how we use select statements. Um, and this is the Query Designer window, uh, which, yeah, so here's a new query. Um, Design query in editor, and here's where you would do that. So here it is, and you'd be able to actually see it here, and then you you could get your query string down here. Um, so it's pretty interesting and strong. You just have to play around with it and really get to it. So I hope you know get the PowerPoint presentation and play with the Management Studio, SQL Management Studio, and see what you could learn and what you could get out of it. Um, just want to tell you, you could always reach me. You could email me at kshardar@bpcc.edu. You could call me at 318-453-8082. You could call me any day, anytime. It's never too late. It's never too early. If I don't answer, leave a message. I'll get back with you. So I'm always available for you to get in touch with me. Anyways, have a great day and continue, and hopefully you have a great experience with the lesson. Goodbye.